this, the advantages, and much more. Actually, I was looking at the profile of Aarti Mataji. It was a long list, just showing how qualified she was to actually present this. But an icing on cake to all her qualifications is that she is serving in Govardhan Eco Village. That itself speaks so much to all of us, the devotees, that the knowledge and training in the physical expertise is being utilized for the devotional service. So with that note, warm welcome to you, Aarti Mataji. We'll let you please go ahead. And just to give you the viewers, all our dear audience here, to let you know where we are at. In this Wholesome Devotee Care series, we have known something about the Krishna Katha, Harinam, and in the physical health aspect, we have heard about Ayurvedic medicine and its daily use. That was the week before. And the last week from Gauranga Prabhu, we have heard about the devotee care, social health devotee care aspect of it. We will elaborate more of it in the email that we are going to send out, which will be more tailored to our personal instructions. It wasn't so much in the general instructions that Prabhuji gave, but since I attended the course, there were slides which are really helpful to us personally, and I'm going to share that information in the email that we are going to send out. And now today, as a part of the physical health, it's the second session about yoga and pranayama. That's where we are at, just to remind you. And yes, Aarti Mataji, please go ahead.
Thank you, Ujjwala Mataji. I am so personally feeling inspired to see the series of things being done for the devotees. And yes, I feel that is my biggest, not a qualification, but a fortune that I'm able to serve at Govardhan Eco Village under the instruction of His Holiness Radhanath Swami Maharaj. So I was very happy when Ujjwala Mataji actually approached and messaged. I instantly said yes, without, I think even, we did not even discuss anything much that what is the background of the whole thing. Today only I got to know about the different series you're already doing. So amazing. And welcome all the devotees, well-wishers who are here for taking care of yourself in a holistic way. I'm sure we all share a common goal of somehow or the other managing things by which we can serve others in a better way. So thank you so much for being here today. The topic that I'm going to discuss today mainly is about breathing and some of the postures. So in case if you really wish to inspire me, few of you can switch on your videos so I don't feel that I'm talking to myself. Just in case if you wish to, if you are comfortable, I would love to see some faces listening to the class. That's completely optional. I always like to put this line in case if even a couple of people are inspired to put and they are, see, I can see a few of them putting the videos on. So that's a strategy I use in every class, because it's so much of zooming happening since a couple of years now that I think we all feel we're just talking to the screen all the time. So when I see some nods and when I see some faces, it keeps my enthusiasm very high. Okay. So today, the subject that I wish to share in a level 1, at least to start with, I am hoping that we continue with certain things in future as well. To start with, I want to discuss something about very important but little neglected aspect of breath, about breathing. Okay? So my first question to all of you is, are you all breathing right now? I know it's a foolish question, but are you all breathing right now?
We guess so.
Since you are on the screen, alive and online, which means you are breathing, that's what I feel. Okay, my next question is now, can you take a deep breath inside and breathe out? Okay. So whoever is on the camera, I can see, and off the camera, I'm sure you did that successfully. Were you able to do it? Yes. May I now ask you to breathe faster? Like, okay, great. Stop. You're able to do that as well? Okay. Is your heart beating right now?
Fast.
Fast. Fast or slow, but beating, right? Can you please stop your heart for a while? Do you have siddhis? Even I don't have, being a yoga teacher yet.
Not as
Okay.
of now.
Not as of now. Do you think you've had your breakfast, or something is happening with your digestion? Maybe, yeah, not sure, but maybe, yes. Can you please stop it? No, right? So that's why the first thing I want to say is, let's be grateful for our breath, which is a wonderful straddle between voluntary systems and involuntary system. There are so many functions in the body that we have which are not in our control. But breath is such a wonderful phenomena, God gifted, of course, God has given us, that we can manipulate it, change it in such a way to help ourselves for better well-being. Okay, so that's why I thought of starting on this note, that we have to be saying thank you, that without any alarm, without anything, our breath is going on its own. And in certain practices, we can use our breath as a tool also to manage our health on all the different levels. So my next point is about our different levels. I can see most of you are from devotional background, so you have to fill in the blank now. I'm going to say something and you have to finish that line. I am not this body, I am. I think we have memorized it enough. Yes, Jyoti Mataji. Radha Mataji, Jyoti Mataji. What did you say? Soul?
Soul, Mataji.
Perfect. I think we have, I mean, at least you all, I can't say, but I'm yet to realize it. But at least intellectually, I have understood by reading this statement that yes, I'm not this body, I'm a soul, right? However, yogic aspect spreads some light on more elements of our beings, of who we are as a personality. And this concept, I'm sure many of you might have heard it, but I'm going to put it in a yogic perspective today of Pancha Kosha. So we're not going to discuss all the 5 koshas. So Pancha means 5 and koshas means sheaths, layers. Yeah. So Pancha Kosha, I'm going to discuss first 3 koshas today. So as you all said, we are not this body, we are soul, right? But yoga says little more in between we have that we need to manage to come to that realization and do the needful practices. So I'm going to prove this few things to you through some conversations we'll have. I can see most of you right now, and you exist because you are on the screen, behind the screen, off the camera, on the camera. So you have a body and it's easy to be proven. I mean, a doctor can also prove it through some research, etc. So I don't have to convince to you much about the first layer of our existence in Pancha Kosha, which is called as Annamaya Kosha, right? The physical sheath or the physical body. Everybody's convinced about it. I don't have to worry. Now we go beyond. As we keep on going beyond, these koshas, they keep getting subtle and they are within us, outside of us. So the second kosha is called as Pranamaya Kosha, or the energy body. Now, how many of you have ever said this to yourself or to others around, that I am feeling so low today? Oh, I'm extremely tired. I have no energy. How many of you ever said that? Sometimes or the other. Yes, when I say that. What are you referring to? Can you please show me your energy levels, please? Radhika Mataji, you raised your hand. Can you show me your energy, please?
So I can't show, but I can express, say, like, I don't feel like doing something, or, I'm tired. I don't have energy. Subjectively.
Exactly. So very true. So we feel it, right? So all of you agree to this? We feel our energy body. So for example, when you go to some open place, close to nature, away from city life. So how you feel? You feel more energetic suddenly, right? And when we are in some place which is like congested, lot of, or vehicles are there, traffic is there, so we don't feel very nice or opened up. So this is where, we can't see our energy body, but we feel it. And that's what we also refer to as energy body or Pranamaya Kosha. this prana. This word is really important for our today's discussion as we go further, and some practical aspect as well. So pranamaya kosha, or the energy body, is also what we have. So I hope that all of you are convinced that we also have energy body which needs to be taken care and nourished, right? So what happens in the name of yoga at times? We equate yoga with some physical asana practices mostly, right? But it is definitely a little much more than that. Okay? And then we come to the third kosha, and that is called as manomaya kosha, or the mental sheath. Mind. Again, I have a question. Do you all have mind? I mean, of course, even if you don't like your mind sometimes, but you have it. You don't like your mind, which means it's a proof that you have a mind. Yeah, for not liking something or not agreeing with something, also need to have that, right? So I'm sure you all agree to this. We already have mind. So these are, and further, of course, we have wisdom sheath and then bliss body. So the subject matter is not so deep today, but it is said in yoga, in the yogic science and yoga therapy, yoga disease concepts, that all these koshas are interconnected and interrelated to interdependent on each other. Okay? And let's prove it quickly through one example so that we are convinced about the theory part, and then the practice will be more and more convincing that why we should do, why we are holding nose and what are we doing. So how are these three koshas connected? Do you believe, or have you heard of this concept where yogis keep on talking about this, that body, mind, and breath, harmonizing this? You know, all the yoga codes are all about harmonizing body, breath, mind. So do you all think that they are connected to each other?
Yes.
Yes?
Yeah.
Okay. Even others who are, which cameras are not on, you can always unmute and answer, no problem. So can someone give me an simple day-to-day life analogy or example that comes to your mind spontaneously about how you see this connection in your day-to-day life, how body, mind, and breath are connected to each other?
Can go.
Oh yeah, go
Yes,
ahead.
Radhi.
Please.
No, if anyone wants to
No,
say,
no,
that's
please go
fine. Yeah.
You
So,
have been the most active member so far, so please go ahead. I'm waiting for others to wake up.
so in what I see in this present lifestyle scenario, there are a lot of people, they're stressed out, like, you know, from morning till working, whatever, work wise or personal wise, there is too much happening. So I feel like, you know, their breath, the breathing pattern is not normal, and it's kind of very shallow, and that kind of causes restless thoughts in the mind, and that bombards in the mind, and whatever happens in the mind, that reflects on the body. And there are a lot of diseases, injuries. So the breathing pattern, mind, and the body are like all interlinked, and it's like a cycle, like, you know, too much
Very
thinking,
true.
like reflex, and the breathing and the body, all these physical, mental, and the breathing pattern.
So true. Very nice. Okay. I'm looking for one more day-to-day life simple example. Can anybody just say one word, couple of words that, okay, this is what happens, and we see reactions happening to all of that? Anything more? Any more analogies coming to anybody's mind?
Mataji, one example
Yes.
that comes to my mind is like in the evening time when the body is like more tired, then the mind also gets tired. Like it doesn't want to do like even reading Prabhupada's books. It's like more hesitating to actually read, and you know, you just want to do something more relaxing and things like that.
So nice. So true. Yes, very true. I'm going to give one more common example now to all of you. Anger.
I was good.
Let's be honest, all of us feel angry sometimes, at times, more often, less often, I don't know that, but yes, do. So what anger is something causing, you know, first in the mind, yes, coming in the mind, like an emotion. Now, please tell me what happens to your other aspects of being as far as kosha is concerned. What happens to your breath? Right now, I'm comparing pranamaya, kosha, and breathing together as synonym to explain this analogy. So what happens to your pranic body or your energy body or your breathing? So others also please share what happens to you. I mean, provided you get angry. I mean, if you are the one who don't get angry, please accept my dandavats and please teach me how not to get angry. I'm also in the process of trying to do yoga for that. So, but if you are the one like most of us getting angry, then please share what happens to your breathing when you get angry.
Breathing gets faster.
Yes, faster, or I would also put it in another synonym word, erratic.
Yes.
Erratic means inhalation is somewhere else in some other seconds, exhalation is shallow or not proper. So erratic, fast is a commonly experienced breath. Okay.
Yes, Mataji,
Yes, please.
I was going to say that, yes, it gets shallow and then you feel like your heart is beating so much faster.
Yes, I was coming to that point. Thank you, Preeti. So what happens to your physical body? I already got one answer. The heart beats. You experience that? I'm just trying to take your awareness closer to your anger response. For us, maybe it's just a shout or an emotion, but see what happens through different aspects of our body. Okay, what else happens to the physical body?
Body temperature rises.
Becomes restless.
Oh, wow. Everybody, I'm so happy now. Everybody is interacting. Yes, restless. Okay. What's Akipriya Mataji? What did you say?
Temperature of body rises like you heated up.
Yes. Yes, you feel heat, like a hot flush. And I have seen people turning red as well. I don't know about you, but cheeks and hands. Have you also noticed some clenching happening sometimes? Teeth.
Yes, Mataji.
Hands.
Yes, I feel.
Yes.
Yeah, clenching, and also feel. I feel it's like trembling. My body is trembling. Yes.
And then another response in the long run that we see, we either don't end up eating properly, eating more, or digestion is also affected in some or the other way. If we are eating around that emotion, you might take time to notice all these more subtle changes, but even digestion is definitely affected. So why are we even discussing this example? The reason is this proves very clearly that our body, breath, and mind have a very close relation. And as far as yogic shastric texts are concerned, which talks about yoga chikitsa, yoga therapy, yoga disease, they say that the root cause of all the psychosomatic disease, I'm sure most of you have heard of this term, psycho mind, soma body. So all I'm not talking here about the infection, fever, food poisoning that you get. That's a different concept and subject. Yoga won't help in that. But all the psychosomatic diseases. Can you please, all of you, contribute to me in terms of some names and what do you understand? Which are the diseases you think are psychosomatic in nature? Maybe even we might be having some already.
Depression.
Stress.
Depression, yes.
Stress.
Stress, diseases, you can name some diseases. Sorry.
Insomnia.
Insomnia, absolutely, yes.
Blood pressure.
Absolutely, yes. Big yes to blood pressure. Big yes to diabetes. Big yes to nowadays commonly the thing like hormonal imbalance, PCOD, lifestyle disorders. Absolutely. Even doctors sometimes, genuine doctors, anybody doctor, please forgive me. I'm not against doctors. I'm just saying that even genuine doctors nowadays honestly are suggesting that you need to change your diet, you need to exercise, especially when girls go for hormonal imbalance. So it's so common nowadays. So I'm coming back to my point of what yoga scriptures say, that all the diseases which are psychosomatic in nature, which means they originate at the mental level first. What are the symptoms when it occurs at mental level? Still, it is not in our soma, on physical body. They're only mentally. Most likely, the common symptoms would be your regular frequent mood swings, more outburst of some emotion like anger more frequently than before, right? If you don't address, because see, mind, manomaya kosh, pranamaya kosh, the energy body, and the third, physical body, the lowest, the gross, they are connected, right? So when at manomaya level it is originated, what we do mostly, since all of you being devotees, you may not have very low grade distractions, but outer world, I know what people do is addictions or mundane entertainment, they try to get rid of those mood swings by taking some artificial resort or just talking it out, sharing, which is important. Sharing is important, but no solution, just sharing, venting out. And I'm feeling this, but no outcome. So what happens because of that? Root cause is not addressed. Now we are very close to pranamaya kosha. The thing is increasing, so we come down. What is the second level of symptoms that one experiences? I have lost enthusiasm for the things that I used to do in my life before. I was so energetic about things that I used to like, my passion, my hobby. But now it's so boring. Like I don't feel like doing drawing, dancing, art, doing, taking care of my family, cooking. I'm bored. I have no energy. I just don't have that zest that I had before. Oh, I'm so sorry. It has come to your pranamaya. Still what we do, we push ourselves, try to take some multivitamin pills and try to go to different doctors and check. And many times I have seen people really go to doctors, but they end up having very clear reports. Fortunately, so far. Like, no, everything is okay, not that bad. But mentally, emotionally, things are messed up. So now pranamaya kosha again, we are dragging, nothing much happening. Unfortunately, now is the time when it will come in some of your reports because it has traveled to annamaya kosha. So now you see if disease can originate in the mind, can travel up to pranamaya and then come to your somatic body. It can come to anywhere then. There is a big reason why it would come to a particular place. That's a little broader subject. But it will come and you have that disease and you work on it. So this is the reason I discussed the point where they are connected. So if we take care of our physical body and pranamaya kosha and manomaya kosha and try to find the nourishing elements through yoga to each of this, see how holistically we can manage our disease also if currently we have already, unfortunately. If we don't have, then all we have to do is keep nourishing these layers of existence that are between our body and soul till the time we really have the ultimate realization. So we nourish all the layers of our existence through a yogic way. So where today, the subject of today is more of a pranamaya kosha, of how even by nourishing our correct, breathing aspect, improving on our breath work, and just contributing some time of our day in proper breathing and chest opening exercises, how we can enhance our energy levels and immunity. So this is the reason why, we discussed little background today about koshas, which was really important. Only I personally feel as a, as a sharing teacher that we need to understand a little bit of theory behind the practices that improves our convincing power and a little dedication to why we should do what we should do. So that was a little small background about the prana or the pranamaya kosha, breathing and the different koshas. Okay. So coming back to pranamaya kosha now, that's what the main subject we are discussing today. How have you heard all of you this term prana?
Yeah.
Prana Shakti, prana. Yeah. Is it just the breath?
Life force.
Very good. Yes. If I have to see the translation through the scriptures, it is called as life force, which is pervading all around us, inside of us. And if I have to go into the supreme detail, then of course it comes from Supreme Lord only. So it's that force which is life-giving, life-sustaining. And what are the sources of prana? Any idea apart from breath, which I think you all must have understood by now? Any more sources of prana?
Senses.
Okay. So how do you take prana inside?
Breathing your nose.
Breathing.
Like you're breathing
is
in.
one. So
Diet.
even very good. Yes, I was looking for this. Food, sun, air are some of the sources of prana. And that is why if you go to any Ayurvedic, holistic, naturopathy doctors, you will see that most of them are talking about, taking sun therapy or eating a more holistic diet. Yeah. So if you go to any naturopath or Ayurvedic, they always, even for any disease, they advise you a holistic. Why? Because sometimes why we are not able to heal ourselves from any disease through physical practices is because we have very less prana in the body. Now, regarding prana, little background about it. We all are born with certain amount of prana. This is what scripture says. this is all karmic. We are all born with certain prana in the body. Everybody has different amount of prana. Our lifestyle, habits, food will determine now, henceforth, from the birth, that are we and the nature of prana is dissipating always, going outside and helping us to function inside different things. Now, we all know that there are different functions in the body, organs are doing, but we go a little beyond science in yoga scriptures and say that who's telling who in the body to do his job. So that's prana. And it is located on different areas. Again, that's little detailed, but every prana is located in different areas. So the point, the simple point is, when the prana reduces in the body, because the nature of prana is keep dissipating to the extremities, head, fingers, toes. So that's why even you will see that in holistic yoga practices, some mudras are done. What are we doing through mudras? We are concealing the prana inside of our body. Because prana, the tendency is to move through the extremities of the body. This is proven. This is scientific research. Some electromagnetic waves are going out through these extremities. So that is why the goal, when we are trying to heal ourselves, feel energetic, or we want to improve our immunity and look at yoga as a therapy, every holistic practitioner is somehow the other way. They have different strategies, but they are trying to conserve your prana. Because this prana, which is usually otherwise getting wasted, we can use it if we have more, or we save what we have inside to help us in the disease. So that's why, have you heard of this fasting concepts in naturopathy? So what are they? What is their concept here? That when we fast, we are saving the prana, which otherwise every day goes on digesting that food. When we eat heavy food. So if you see, mostly naturopaths and Ayurveda, they advise simple sattvic. Of course, even ISKCON food is sattvic, but my concept of sattvic is a little different. I'm not talking about offered samosas or pizzas here, mind you. Just because it's offered, it's not like permissible as far as my strictness in yoga and diet is concerned. So please forgive me for being a little blunt on this matter. But remember, when I say sattvic, yogic sattvic does not mean anything offered, but also really in terms of more close to the nature and less processed. So that kind of food, when we eat, our power, digestive energy, prana, which is wasted otherwise in digesting that food, is saved to heal ourselves. Why? Because that prana will then travel to the place where there is a weakness in that organ. And this prana is flowing throughout the body. Right? Wherever there's a weak prana flowing, that organ most probably is affected, and it comes in our reports. So this is a little background behind how disease occurs. So this is the little background about the sources of prana. And as I mentioned in the first line when I started the class, that how these are some mystical elements, prana, etc., can't access quickly. But we have been given wonderful tool like a breath, which very nicely straddles between the border of involuntary and voluntary system in our body. You can't control everything, digestion, heartbeat, etc., but you can control and manipulate your breath. Let's call it as a physiological reality, which we can perceive. Breath as prana we can't perceive, but the physiological reality, or if I have to show some picture of prana, then let's call it as a breathing. And a wonderful body-mind connection is there. Okay. So from this now, let's move further to the breathing aspect. And this is going to get really practical and amazing now, because we are going to discuss that how the breath works, how are we breathing, and how we are supposed to be breathing. So something on that. What has happened currently now, we have machines for everything, every task, traveling, household work, right? Previously, I'm sure you would know that there was a farming occupation, there were no machines, even household work was to be done with hands. So now we have reduced need of physical activities, and that is the reason the breathing is not happening as it should be. There is no need for us to breathe so much. So you imagine somebody doing more heavy job like farming, washing clothes, cleaning house with hands. Do you all agree that it requires more energy and that's why the person would end up taking more breaths? So due to modern technology, there is a reduced physical activity which makes our breath little shallow, erratic, etc. Okay. Second important reason is we nowadays succumb too quickly to emotional outbursts often. I don't know about you all, but I know I would always still glorify my grandmothers and my mother that your tolerance is 1,000 times better than our generation. And I'm sure humbly we always agree to it, even those who are my age, that definitely the tolerance that our elders have, we don't have that. We end up having too many emotional outbursts. So when you cry too much, when we are angry too much, often, this changes our breath pattern. As you all already mentioned, in anger, what happens to the breath? It quickly changes, right? So succumbing too early to emotional outbursts quite often is also altering our breath. And third reason is we nowadays, thanks to Corona, all the way we had sedentary jobs in closed environment even before Corona. Now, thanks to Corona, we still have the same situation. We are more compact now. So when there is constantly, AC around us, the air conditionings and a closed room to work, again, the expansion of our, muscles, the way we should breathing in and out may not happen. And fourth factor is we have a natural system in our body for all the organs, and lungs also have it, self-defense mechanism. For example, if the air is not nice, it's polluted, the lungs would use their intelligence and say, I don't want to take this air inside. And naturally, the full capacity will not come out for us to breathe in properly. So this is one of the reasons why we don't kind of breathe fully, deeply nowadays. So these are some of the reasons. So let's figure it out now. That what will happen when we breathe shallow, erratic, restricted because of these factors? Insufficient intake of oxygen, which is such an important thing. Right now, I'm talking a little scientific now. Prana is always there in back of my mind, front of my mind. But when I say insufficient, it's also prana all the time. But let's talk a little science now, which means we take less oxygen. And when we don't even breathe out properly, what are we doing? Inviting more toxins in the body. We're not releasing the carbon dioxide properly outside. Okay, right? So our bodies are starving basically for oxygen. And what does this starvation lead to? Physical tension in the body. Physical tension will come out to you in any kind of muscular pain sometimes that you might feel. Joint pain, muscular pain, okay? Then reduced vitality. More often you will see yourself complaining that I am so tired. Even it's not even end of the day and you are like tired, low energy. Emotional instability is also one of the symptoms of not breathing properly. Depleted energy and definitely poor immune system, etc., etc. The list is on and on, unfortunately, but these are some of the main symptoms that you might feel in spite of having no big reason apparently on the reports. If you have all these issues, which means your body is lacking prana and you need to utilize your breath as a tool to enhance prana in your body. So there are some prana enhancing techniques through pranayam that needs to be done. Okay. But before we jump to any pranayam, that's what people do. See, YouTube videos, teachers are full of availability, where you have all the information about pranayam. But I'm going to touch base on little basics today, that how you need to even correct your breathing before going to pranayam. Otherwise, you are not getting the full benefits of your pranayam, which most of you might be doing. Yeah. So I'm assuming here half of the group might be into some yogic practices, half of the group is planning to, which never yet doing it. So how do we breathe normally? Let's first figure it out. There are 4 types of breathing that you might be, falling in one of the categories, 2 categories, which is not right. First type of breathing is called as shallow breathing or high breathing. This is a trademark of stress. Stress is somebody who is always anxious, overthinking. So shallow breathing is we are just breathing till our upper chest, or calling it as a clavicular. Don't worry about this. If you think right now, how do I know? I'm going to give you a self-test right in few minutes. And how will you understand how are you breathing usually? Okay. So this is more of the upper chest breathing, upper part of the lungs and more over chest. And anxiety, stress, hyperactive, do this, do that, too much of vata, most likely they are high breathers. Okay. Second category is of reverse breathers. Reverse breathing. It's completely contrary to the natural flow of the body. This is mainly for those who are very fearful or anxious. This is such a psychological analysis of how you would end up breathing if you have some psychological, traits. So reverse breathing is where the abdomen goes inside when you breathe in. Ideally, imagine a balloon in front of you right now. If you blow a balloon, fill air in the balloon, what should happen to a balloon? Common sense, the air will go in the balloon. That's what should happen to our belly also, to our chest also. Expansion and belly should be coming out. But what happens with the reverse breathing? Anxiety, fear, or just a lifestyle, the belly goes inside instead of coming outside. Okay. The third kind of breathers are curtailed exhalations or short inhalations. Like you breathe in, but while breathing out, you're done. I mean, you can't breathe out fully, nicely, long exhalations. Now, this is a big problem because you are not discarding the impure gas out properly from the body. This can also lead to toxin building and many other issues in the body, right? And the fourth is interesting. I never knew this exists. I knew 3 of this, but the fourth one was fascinating for me also when I was reading my pranayam books. Slimmer's breath. Slimmer's breath is very latest and fashionable breathing where people end up sucking their tummy inside. Just with an illusion, they think that I am going to hold my abdominal muscles inside to look slim. Funny, right? Even I was laughing when I read this. And I have seen people actually, this is not just bad for their health, but it's also very bad for their lumbar, for their back. It's very bad for the overall whole curve or arch that they get. So we end up, when we socialize with people, or we just think that if I keep sucking my belly in while walking, talking, sitting, then my belly will go. It's not that easy to lose weight. You did not put on weight in few days, right? Same way you will not lose weight in just few days. So habitually holding the abdominal muscles inside is also one of the wrong pattern. So now I'm sure few of you must have already figured it out what kind of breathing you have. If not, then definitely I'm going to help you in that. So we have to basically breath our way to good health. So if we are missing on some nutrients, we are advised a proper diet, right? Same way, if we just breathe correctly, correct breathing, we take in more prana. So if diet is a remedy for some nutritional deficiency in essence, the same way, if vital energy of prana is what is going to help you to heal yourself. I'm not saying this is the only way, but if you are trying out many holistic things for your health, why not add this element also to bring about more faster results to whatever other plans you have for your healthy lifestyle. Okay. So what is the systematic approach to learn pranayam now? Okay. What is the systematic way? We spoke about the wrong breathing. Let's understand. Okay. Now I'm going to give you a wonderful example. I'm sure there are many parents out here, right? Or even if you're not parent yet, maybe you're a kid. So I need both of the analogies here. You are either a kid or you are a parent, right? But you're someone's children also if you're not a parent yet. So now I want you to imagine this beautiful childhood memories, or if you're a parent and visualize a child in front of you. When your child misbehaves, or when you as a child used to misbehave, did you sometimes get just a stern look from a parent, one of the parents? Usually we have this one parent only whom we are more scared. The rest we always take for granted for full life. So either it's a father or a mother. For me, it was my father. Mother, I think I never took her very seriously. So father, yes, definitely. So what happened? What was your response when you are like, being naughty and doing some mess around, whatever, blah, blah, blah. So what would happen if your father or a mother would just give you a stern look? What would you understand from that look? Anyone?
He is angry at you.
Angry. And then what would be your outcome to that look?
We stop doing
Fear.
whatever mischievous
Fear.
thing we are doing.
Yeah, exactly. What we will do, we'll start correcting ourselves, we'll stop doing what we are doing. We will understand, we'll take it as a signal that, okay, somebody is getting angry on me. I better stop this before I get more busting from them. Okay. So this is exactly how our breath is. Our breath is like a child. All we need to do first step is observe the breathing. This is called as mindful breathing in yogic concept, where all we do is spend few minutes and observe the breath. Trust me, the moment you start observing your breathing, it will become deeper. Trust me, I guarantee this to you through my own experience, through whatever I've been reading in pranayama books. The moment you take a pause, close your eyes, and let me just watch my breath, suddenly it behaves so well. Like it's not even shallow, it's not even erratic, it's not fast, you just feel relaxed. So this is the first step that you should be doing regularly, time and again, stopping and observing your breath. And this will really give you a new, outlet to kind of work on your breath properly. So first step is observing the breath. Second step is you identify the wrong breathing pattern. Of course, you might have the fifth category, which I'm not aware of as of now. So if there is any, please let me know. So these are the 4 categories most likely people fall into the wrong breathing pattern. So then you identify the wrong breath, and now you do the correction part. Very important. Self-correction in lying down position. Lying down position is said to be much more easier than doing it in a sitting position as a beginner. Okay. So I have my co-teacher Ria today, who is going to quickly show you how to do this in a lying down position. Okay, before we go for more exercise. So Ria, are you there? Yes. So I'm going to, Prabhu, can you, whoever is host, can
Yes, ma'am.
spotlight Ria?
Yeah, sure.
Her camera is on.
Yes, ma'am.
So Ria, you have a book, right, with you, like we did for the afternoon class. You keep that, yeah, and come slightly closer to the screen. So it's nice to use some props. I use it in kids class too, to get them the understanding of what it means to breathe properly. And same with adults, I guess, because we forget to breathe properly when we grow up also, unfortunately. So in Shavasana, how many of you know Shavasana? Please unmute and I want to hear yes or no.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, Mother.
Yes.
You know why I ask this question? Because I always like to laugh. Even if we do yoga or we don't do yoga regularly, somehow the other whole world knows about Shavasana. So I really love to ask that more deliberately, that no matter how irregular you are with the yoga practice, you forget all the asanas, but somehow Shavasana happens to be the most favorite and known practice. So yes, that's what you have to do in Shavasana. Hope you all can see Ria. She's on spotlight. Yes. So in Shavasana, you can use a small soft toy if you have, or a small book or a diary. If you wish to do this right now, you can do it, or feel free to observe it if you're already, had some food and not feeling like lying down right now. So from here, you have to breathe in deeply, and the prop or whatever light book, it has to be a light book, okay? It need not be a very thick book or something, notepad or something like that. So it has to rise up when you breathe in. That impetus, that prop is going to push you in breathing in fully and deeply. You have to do this practice regularly before any of your breathing practices for a few minutes every day to correct your breathing naturally, even if it's shallow, reverse. So whatever type of breathing you have, this practice is going to help you. So I'm just going to guide Ria for a few rounds so you know the flow and the rhythm of how you should be doing it in your self-practice, self-correction. So it's like exhale completely in Shavasana. Now inhale 1, 2, 3, 4. Exhale 1, 2, 3, 4. Continue. So what is happening here? we are trying to lift our belly, like, the belly is coming out, the air is getting filled even in the lower lobes of our lungs so that we can utilize the full capacity here. The diaphragm is moving wonderfully. That's why we are doing a diaphragmatic breathing. Just to simplify, I'm calling it as abdominal breathing. And then chest also is going to expand, and we will feel the breath through our clavicular region up to the nostril. So it's a full yogic breathing. This is called as yogic breathing or sectional breathing. 3 sections are there, 3-part breathing. You can also do this in the sitting pose. Only lying down as a beginner, if you're a beginner and struggling with the breath, always feel you are a shallow breather, you feel suffocated, you are not ready, then lying down is the best option, number 1 option to do the auto correction. So this is a full deep breathing. You can do around, let's say, minimum 8 to 12 rounds of this before you go for any of the practices. And especially if you struggle with low energy, low immunity, and other healing, that you're looking for more prana in the body, more proper gaseous exchange, improving your lung capacity, expansion of the chest, asthma issues, you have to work on your breath in this way before going for any pranayama practice. So this is the deep conscious breath, which is the first stage, visualizing a balloon. You can do this inhalation and exhalations through that. Okay. So thank you, Ria. So I can go further now.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. I'll show some more of those chest opening exercises. So just imagine that this deep conscious breathing also has a lot of benefits. Forget about, I have not even touched upon pranayama because it's a huge subject again. There are different types of pranayama, which is out of purview to cover in 1 hour, to be honest. But even I wanted to touch base on the basics today. So what are the benefits of deep conscious? Just a simple practice that you can do any time of the day. I would still say avoid immediately after meals, because some different changes are happening in the body after meal. So have a gap of some time, but morning, evening, small meals you are having, anytime after 1 hour, you can do this mindful breathing. It improves your quality of blood, resulting in increased oxygenization in the body. So we really need that, right? It helps to flushing out toxins from the body. Because see, we are breathing out properly. Otherwise, it's a problem. We are not breathing in or breathing out properly. Lungs, they become more elastic and stronger. What to speak of, improving the lung capacity in this current COVID time. And we don't know what is coming next after this, where we really need a healthy body to keep going. It's very good for heart patients also, because it gets happy heart, it gets little rest when we are doing deep breathing. We don't have to push ourselves, of course, with heart problems, but just doing conscious breathing is very nice. Do you see when we move our abdomen up and down, the intra-abdominal organs are massaged gently. And this can really help those who have digestive issues as well. And definitely we know breath, mind are connected. So you have more improved nervous system. And in relation to that, you have stronger endocrine system also. So it's all interconnected to each other. And the best part is relaxation. Relaxation and stimulus to parasympathetic nervous system. Oh my God, what has come now? So anybody, what is this parasympathetic? I'm going to make it very simple because I'm also not from any doctor or science background. So I love to make this concept very simple. So even you and me are in the same line. For some of you who made like, oh, what is this now? Parasympathetic. We have, let's understand our autonomic nervous system, or to simplify it, just say we have 2 responses in our nervous system coming through autonomic nervous system, where one is sympathetic nervous system, one is parasympathetic. Okay till now with the names, forget about remembering them, just the concept. Okay, now what happens is nowadays we need both the responses. What is the responsibility of each? Let's understand that, you'll get more clarity. Sympathetic nervous system is responsible for fight and flight response. Okay, so Ashtasakhi, if I see, if you come to GEV, you all love Eco Village, right? You were glorified, Mataji was glorifying. I mind you, please don't change your decision to come here when I say this example. We have snakes here because it's Eco Village, right? Or we have lizards in the room. Like I know some guests come here for yoga courses and they freak out. Mataji, we have lizards. I said, we are in their house actually. You know, we have invaded their kingdom. So I'm so sorry. I can't do anything about the lizard in your room. I'm afraid. So anyways, lizard, I think lizard sounds good more than snake. I'm more scared of snakes. Imagine you see, I want to use a snake, but imagine you see a snake coming outside of your corridor where you're staying. Ashtasaki, what you will do?
I'll just get scared and run away.
Very good. Because we have that response. We're not dumb creatures. We have been given, when any sane person has that sympathetic active, run. Now I know Anmol, my husband, what he will do, he will bring a stick. The stick by which we hold the snake and get it away. So he likes to fly. He likes to not flight, not run, but fight the situation. So everybody will have either this or this response. But both of this needs some action, right? That is, Ashtasaki wants to run. She will need more blood circulation to her legs. For that, her heartbeat is going to increase. There's going to be some hormonal rush happening in the body by which everything is going to get activated quickly. This job is done by sympathetic nervous system. We need it. I mean, it's not bad. Of course, there'll be some stress hormones. The heartbeat is going to increase. The breath is going to increase. You'll become red. But why this is happening? Because you have to take some step, action, proactively. You have to run. Same happens with Anmol or somebody who has to fight the snake, because even he'll need power and chase the snake or whatever, right? So it's not bad. We need it. Okay. And the second response, that is parasympathetic. I was talking about sympathetic. This is parasympathetic. This response is where we rest and relax and the body is in a relaxed mood. Day-to-day functions are happening on its own. We are normally like, you know, this. This is where the whole system is in a very relaxed mood, energy conserving mood, right? And the other one is energy going mode, right? Now, so it's not bad. We were given this response as a self-defense. We needed that because previously we did not have many security system or facilities. We had to protect ourselves. So this instinct is important, where we run or we fight. Otherwise we would die, right? The problem nowadays is our sympathetic nervous system does not get activated only when we see some wild animal snake, with a phone call, with somebody's harsh word, with somebody's deadline, with some relationship issues. Our sympathetic nervous system gets activated now and then. That's the problem. So that is the reason we want parasympathetic nervous system to take over more often. That's not happening nowadays. We were giving sympathetic nervous system of fight and flight to save ourselves. So that all that, because what is happening in sympathetic is little, overboard for the body. Energy consumption, hormones, and adrenaline rush is there, which can lead to when these hormones are often in the body, then it can cause diabetes, heart problem, hypertension, etc. So this is the reason stress management is given importance in every disease, psychosomatic. This is the reason. These people have more of their sympathetic nervous system active. And what does longer exhalation, deep breathing, conscious breathing does? Takes charge over sympathetic, and parasympathetic is more activated quite often. And that is why you see all these yogis, at least externally, when you see pictures, etc., it's shown like this, calm, quiet. That's really actually a truth. If you are breathing deeply, slowly, more calmer, or more activating your parasympathetic nervous system. So understood that why even simple deep, I was just talking about the benefits of deep conscious breathing. Look at the list of benefits that you have only if you breathe deeply. What to speak when I will be speaking on this pranayam and that pranayam, and that's like amazing. So whatever pranayam that you have been doing, like for example, pranayams like Anulom Vilom, alternate nostril breathing, are again having similar benefits. Breathing practices like Brahmari has amazing benefits for insomnia, and all the benefits are very much connected in a way to each other. The main is parasympathetic nervous system. So that is one of the main reasons we should be doing this breathing practices. Then I also wanted to show you some of the chest opening poses that you might like to add to your schedule, to your existing schedule if you're already doing something. If not, you just add it. This will not only help you in expanding the capacity of your lungs, but will also help you in elevating, avoiding any back pains that people have. Back pain is one of the common thing I think nowadays everyone has, thanks to more of our Zoom calls every now and then. We have more of the desk thing related. So it will also help you in shoulder mobility and releasing stiffness from the back. So I wish to demonstrate the 6 asanas, or I can say movements, which can be done as a preparation for pranayama, preparation for deep conscious breathing, or randomly on a chair sometimes if you feel stiffness in your back and shoulders. They have a lot of benefits in it. Okay? So again, I request you to spotlight Ria and can explain. Because you see, proper posture is really important before we do any breathing practice. It's very important to keep the back straight. Okay. So that is one common advice I would give, that always, even if you're sitting on the chair, it is very important because of the pranic reasons, that how the prana flows in the body. There are certain roots and channels and nadis, meridians as they call in Chinese medicine. So we need to respect that flow of prana and always sit straight. So if you're not able to sit on the floor due to some knee issues or not habituated, even when you're sitting on the chair, you have to make sure that you keep your back straight. Remind yourself, not just during asana class, but even otherwise. That will really avoid you, get you away from any upcoming back pains or back issues like that. Okay. So let's quickly see some of the movements. If you like, you can do them. They are nothing to do with compression to the abdomen. So even if you've had your food, etc., they should not harm. You can still do it. Even on the chair, you can do it. So bring your arms to the sides. Arms facing up to the ceiling. And we are doing this in a moderate speed, not very fast. So slowly as you breathe in, you have to open your chest nicely, spread your arms to the sides, start lifting your arms from the sides upwards. Very good. Yeah. And once your arms reach above, you have to interlace your fingers together, lock your hands together, turn your palms up to the ceiling. And now you have to breathe out, breathe in and stretch nicely upwards. Very good. And then exhale, slowly bring your palms on top of the head. Once more, you have to inhale and stretch up. This you can do as long as you feel there's a stiffness in your back, and as long as you want. You can keep doing it. Tensing, relaxing, relaxing, you can do that. Then again, stretching. So the way you want, you can do 2 to 3 times like this. And then again, stretch up, final. Inhale and exhaling, lower down your arms from the side, slowly. Keeping them straight, very important. Because that's where we are having chest opening. So anybody with asthma issues also can safely do this practices and are really good for them as well. The second movement is similar, but here we keep our arms in the front with palms facing up towards the ceiling, like before. Yeah. Now raising the arms up from the front, keeping the arms parallel. Very important to keep your awareness on the active stretch and muscles. Doing this mindfully has definitely more benefits than just doing it mechanically. Again, same stretching, interlacing your hands together and inhaling, stretch your arms up. And exhaling, relax down. Once more, inhaling, stretch up. This you do as much as you want, 3 to 4 times. Now slowly, the same way you got your arms up, as you breathe out, bring your arms down from the front, keeping your arms parallel to each other. Nice. Okay. The third is also the arm movement. This is a combination of the first 2 that we did. So bring your arms to the sides. So these simple practices are not just for enhancing the capacity of lungs, they are helping in that, but back pain issues, neck issues, even cervical spondylitis patients can safely do these practices. It will help them in managing the pain. And frozen shoulder also, definitely big yes to that as well. So inhaling, raising the arms up from the sides. Of course, when I say inhaling, when you're done with your inhalation, you're not holding the breath, you keep breathing naturally. Now here you make a cross with your hands, intersecting your arms. Maintaining the same intersection of your arms, you bring your arms from the front on your belly. Here you might have to slightly fold your arms. Great. And then here you can take some deep conscious breath. Since your palms are on the belly, you can try to breathe in deeply and see the belly should come out, and just breathe out, let the belly go in. Do this couple of times, and then slowly with your next inhalation, maintaining the same intersection of your arms, you start lifting your arms up like before, or up above over your head. And slowly release your arms from the sides, slowly. Great. Okay, this is number 3. Now, number 4 is a nice shoulder mobility action. Very good again for opening the chest and improving the lung capacity. And importantly, very, very good practice for those who are sitting on the desk for longer period of time, have pain in the shoulder and neck, frozen shoulder problems, can also safely do it. So here we have to interlace our hands, fingers together, placing our palms above our neck. Somewhere where we have shikha or ponytail, slightly below that, you can just little above the neck. Okay. Yeah, so you can see the position also from behind. Okay. And now from here, we're going to do closing and opening action. So when you breathe out, remember that every time we inhale, the chest has to be open in yoga practice. So basically when we open the chest, when we want the air to come inside, and when we close, we want the air to be out. Okay, simple logic. So now exhale and bring your elbows closer. The goal is not to touch them or something together. It's just bringing them closer. Slightly round your back, tuck your chin to the chest. Anybody with cervical spondylitis can avoid tucking the chin to the chest. They can just look straight and close, right? And now others, you can inhale and stretch your elbow, like arms apart, elbows apart. Imagine that someone is standing behind you and pulling your elbows from behind, and arch your back slightly. I'm sure if you're doing this, many of you who have stiffness in the shoulders, some tuck noise is surely coming in when you're doing this. You know, the release of some spasm and all that. Again, close while breathing out. Try to breathe out fully, completely. You can also breathe out through your mouth sometimes in such practices if you want, but inhalation always through the nose. Now, inhaling open. Exhaling close. Very good. Inhaling open. Exhaling close. And relax. Very good. This you can do up to even like more than 5 times or up to 10 times, especially when you feel a lot of stiffness in your shoulders, and very good for the chest opening as well. Okay. The next practice, you can sit in a cross-leg position. Even if you're on the chair, you can still do all of these practices, modifying the leg position. So we'll do a simple side bend. It's also very good for the overall flexibility of the spine. So raising the left arm up, this postures will also help you to sit for longer time in your meditation and japa practices if you're struggling to sit properly. So this simple practices can be done before your japa, and little conscious breathing. See how it will make difference gradually in your chanting and meditation as well. So raising your left arm up from the side like type 1, but just raising one hand up, right? lengthen. I want you to lengthen the side. So go tall as much as you can, as if you have to pluck something from the top. So yes, very good. Yeah. And then now you can rest your right forearm down to the right side. And then you have to do a side bending to the right while breathing up. Very good. You feel the stretch on one side now and compression on the other side. And slowly come up as you breathe in. And breathing out very slowly, keeping your arm straight, you release your arm from the side. Not miss on the small steps of taking and releasing the pose with arms straight. That also makes a big impact in opening the chest and doing a lot of differences in the body. Now, similarly, you do the other side. Raise your right arm up, lengthen the right side nicely. And now slowly you can bend to the left side, resting your left forearm or to whatever extent your palm can reach to the side, resting your elbow down of the left hand if possible. You can look in the front or you can look up, whatever is good for your neck. And slowly inhaling, come back to the center. And exhaling down. So all this arm movement that I'm showing you, you can do around 3 rounds of each. The shoulder mobility that we showed you, closing and opening, you can do up to 10 rounds of that as well. The next and the last important, the sixth one again, yeah, the sixth one is the twist. Twisting action is very important for spine, releasing any tension out from the spine and opening the chest in a systematic way. So the lateral twist is very essential. So that's what we're going to do now through this easy practice. So Ria, you can turn to one side of your room. Now we have to raise our right arm up. You can also do this if you are on the chair as well. Raise your right arm up. Lengthen the right side. Very good. Lengthen, go tall as much as you can. Now place your right palm on the left knee. Okay. And now you look over the left shoulder, turn your neck around, look over the left shoulder, place your left palm behind your left hip in such a way that you can open your left chest more and more. Keep breathing here and focus on longer exhalations. Hope you all understood the practice. If you have any questions, you can let me know if any doubt. Okay, and slowly release and change to the other side now. Now this time you raise your left arm up. Before even twisting or doing the process, you have to lengthen the left side nicely. Go tall as much as you can. And now place your left palm on the right knee and look over the right shoulder. Open the right chest by adjusting the placement of your right palm, which is behind. Very nice. And very slowly release the posture. Great. Thank you, Ria. Thank you so much. So this was some quick demo of 6 important. There are many, there's lots there in yoga field and yoga aspect in asana. But I really feel that I have seen people really getting better with their chronic back pain management, frozen shoulder, chest opening, breathing properly, could sit for a longer time in meditations and could focus mentally because this was a foundation. After that, they could breathe properly, sit for pranayama. So I thought of sharing these basic practices today, which I'm sure should be helping you. So continue practicing them. They're very easy to practice. People from all the field, you're a beginner, you're advanced, you're intermediate, you've never done yoga. I think this is pretty easy on a first class that you can all safely do. So this was something I wanted to share. And I'm open for some questions. And Mataji, do I have 2 minutes more to speak?
Please go ahead. Please.
Yeah, I just wanted to give some basic guidelines for existing yoga and pranayama practices that people might be doing. But sometimes, we miss out on the benefits because of some common mistakes we might be doing in our basics of following some do's and don'ts, so guidelines. Okay. So it's very important that you sit for your pranayama and asana practice with empty bowels if possible, when you practice in the morning or evening, ideally. If you have constipation issues, etc., try to drink some warm water, and there are some asana practices which can also help you. Okay. Meal gap. There should be a 3 hours of gap between your any kind of asana practice, pranayam practice. A heavy meal, especially if it's a heavy meal, 3 hours gap is important. If it's a light breakfast, then 1.5 hour gap is also fine. Okay. And do not practice when you have some active infections, but deep breathing normally can be practiced. So that's not a problem. Very important takeaway. You should never be in hurry while practicing pranayama. That's what we end up doing. We want to do everything. I had the tendency, so I'm probably speaking on my behalf, that I always wanted my checklist to be looking beautiful. And I did everything. Gradually, as I evolved and I got wonderful teachers and mentors, I realized it's not about just doing. It's about being in what you are doing. So I was not being in what I was doing. I was just doing to feel happy at the end of the day. But still, maybe I was missing out on a lot of benefits mentally, physically. That I did pranayam, I did this, I did that. No. So never be in hurry. Just pause, observe, be mindful. Very important. If you are planning your next task while doing pranayam, then I'm afraid I'm not sure how much is going to really mentally help you. It might give you some physical benefits, limited, but not right. Always check how you feel after your practice. If you feel relaxed, peaceful, organized, which means that it's going good. If you feel hyperactive, more anger, which means you're overdoing some rounds, or you're hyperventilating, you're not breathing in and out properly. So that's where you need a teacher, you can correct yourself, etc. So that's really important. And you need not be forcing any inhalations and exhalations as a beginner. If you're a beginner, you want to start your pranayam journey, never ever force yourself. Stick to a count. If 3 is what you can inhale safely, inhale in 3, exhale in 3. If you're 4, 4. But do not force yourself into the practice. Sitting position, as I mentioned already, I'm repeating again. Sitting straight, aligning your body, balancing the vertical axis from base to skull is really important for a better pranic flow. So please push yourself to sit straight during meditation, japa chanting as well. That'll really help you in doing that. And very important is, again, saying be mindful, become aware of how you feel with every practice. What are the sensations arising? This combines, a lot of things together in the body, mind, and breath aspect when we are more mindful. So that will give you quicker benefits of the whole practice. So that's what you can do before doing it. Okay? So that's it from my side. I'm very much open for any kind of questions, generic questions about the subject. I know it's a very vast subject. And it comes to it's a whole course, whole thing can be done on this, but I hope you got some basic idea and some push, maybe even if not something take away, but at least some classes I feel when we get a little more strengthened with our resolve of taking care of our physical body. Even if that has served the purpose from today's class, and so I'm very happy.
Hare Krishna, Mataji. Just to let you know what we are going through from the viewers side, I personally feel like, and I think most of us can attest to that, I feel like the session is starting. And I look at the time, it's 12:15, but I feel like it is just started. So it is clearly indicative that, and we are really very alert, and we see that it is very helpful and a needed education for us to keep us healthy. So on that note, you only just have started the process, gave a drop of it, only on the Pranamaya Kosha, and only on a little bit of what to do with a deep breathing in a supine Shavasana posture. And after that, you gave the basics of how the prana, the whole basic principle of the prana is how to conserve it. And that's why we do the fasting. Knowing why we are doing what we are doing makes us want to do it. So that's what you have given us, how to conserve the prana, how fasting fits in there, and how to get more of that prana through the environment of fresh air and through these exercises that you have showed us, and how the prana regulation can actually help us to avoid many diseases coming to the somatic level. So this is something that we have within our hands that we could manipulate to keep us healthy, so we can practice our devotion, day-to-day devotional practices regularly at a steady level and get deeper, as you nicely said, that, right, I'm not a body, I'm the soul there, but I have to make this journey from this Annamaya Kosha to Pranamaya Kosha to Manomaya Kosha to Jnanamaya Kosha and then the Vijnanamaya Kosha, and that's what it is. Yes, the goal is there, but the journey has to start. And every layer of our whole existence need to be acknowledged, healed, nourished, harmonized, so the path can open up from the Annamaya Kosha to the Vijnanamaya Kosha. So that is awesome, Mataji. And the way you opened it up, stating.
I mean, I'm more impressed the way you summarized it, more than me doing everything.
This is beautiful. And I was telling to myself, I'm like, if a session goes on like this, we don't mind taking days off. We don't mind changing our lifestyles, because we see that our lifestyles have to change. For us to practice steady devotion for a very long time to come, to get to the stages of, Nishtha, Ruchi, wherever it is, we need this healthy body. We need this healthy mind. So in that aspect, we have to address all the layers of our existence, heal and nourish it to get to the goal that we are given. And I really appreciated how you started this whole class, mentioning from the Shastra of this systematic presentation of yogic sheets. I think that is Taittiriya Upanishad, Mataji. I think that's where it is, right?
Yeah. Taittiriya Upanishad.
So I'm like, how authentic can this get? How authentic can this get? And how practical and relevant can this get to help us practice bhakti in a very sustained, steady way? So we are not missing out and ignoring any sheets of our existence. This is just beautiful. I will pause here. I know there will be so much of appreciation and questions. I'll let Aditya Narayan Prabhu take over, but you are coming back again and again to help us, Mataji. You just touched only.
Yes, and I only give one theory class and I make everyone move on the mat. That's the goal.
Yeah, we will keep in touch, and kindly, this will be a request from all of us in the congregation. Once we open up, you will hear it from the devotees also. We only got a drop of it, but we want this to be our lifestyle.
Yes, Mataji.
So
I will accept all the thank yous only when I see all of you on the mats.
Yes, definitely. We are getting ready there, and I'll give it to you, Aditya and Prabhu. Please open up so the devotees can express, and we'll take it from there.
Hare Krishna, Aarti Mataji. Thank you so much. It was very wonderful. Just sitting on the chair and doing the asanas, I feel better.
See?
And also the point that you mentioned that, just hearing, just being conscious of our breathing, we naturally just improve our breath. And you just mentioned it, and naturally I could feel that, okay, now I'm more conscious and I'm breathing is more deep. So Mataji, there may be other devotees. There's one question on the group also, but I just want to start, if it's okay. So you mentioned the 4 kinds of breathings. So is it true that the best breathing is when our abdomen is moving in and out? Is that the best form of breathing, that the air is going all the way?
Yes. So using even the diaphragm muscle, which is just under our chest. So the goal is to, let it also move properly so that there's a space is created for the air to fill in the lower lobes also of the lungs. That is the reason commonly we also call it as a diaphragmatic breathing, but that's get very technical for some, because many don't even know that there is a breathing muscle here sometimes. So we call it as an abdominal belly breathing, just to simplify the life of people practicing. So yes, the goal is to fill the lungs properly, because main cleansing is happening actually in the lower lobes. The gaseous exchange is happening in the lower lobes. But if the air is not reaching there, then it's no point. So we are using this word of going down, down, down to the abdomen.
Thank you, Mataji.
Yes, that's the best breathing. But I forgot to mention one point. Can I say it now?
Yes, please, ma'am.
Yes. So I really don't mean that you'll have to be going fanatic now and keep doing abdominal breathing and getting conscious that, oh, I'm working, I can't do abdomen. That's not possible. So I forgot to mention this one point. Good, Prabhu, your question actually put me in that direction. Only few minutes on the mat when you do this deep abdominal breathing, your breath is going to get deeper, corrected, and calmer. So it's not that you have to be fanatic throughout. How am I breathing? Am I breathing shallow? Am I breathing this kind of a breather? So you don't have to be fanatic about it whole day. But doing it some time on the mat will automatically correct it. Yes, please.
Thank you so much.
Sorry to interrupt. Just wanted to acknowledge Ria Mataji. And,
Yes,
both-
even
both
I wanted
of
to
you
thank
together.
her.
I got inspired seeing you doing. I'm like, what am I doing sitting in the chair? Let me do something. Thank you so much to you too. Please go ahead.
Okay, there's one question on the group, Mataji. Someone has posted on the chat. What are your thoughts on using exercise balls or sitting chair or standing while working to improve the posture?
Go ahead, we do it. Many times we sit on the balls for the classes so that our spine is straight. No problem. If you're comfortable, if you're using it, please go ahead and do it. It will help to strengthen your core muscles also. And core strength is really, really important for the health of your back and various functions in the body. Sitting straight again will help to improve keeping your chest open so that you breathe properly. So go ahead from my side on sitting on the exercise ball. No problem at all.
And lots of appreciation on the group, Mataji. Everyone is saying it's been very useful for them. So thank you so much.
That I will accept only when we are on the mat, but you can ask questions right now. I'm very inspired by your kind words and I am encouraged, but I will take it more seriously because I feel such enthusiasm keep coming in our lives. Like a spark, they come and go, but I think I will be more happy when I see you all on the mat consistently doing thrice a week, something. So that's the goal.
Thank you.
But thank you for your inspiring words. That keeps me going, basically.
So anyone on the group would like to unmute and ask? You can go ahead.
Yeah. Aarti Mataji, thank you so much for this wonderful session. I really, deep from my heart, I appreciate this because this is something we all are looking for, especially me. So I have a question regarding now here in USA, the corporate world, there is this happening like Yoga Nidra. So what is the difference between the Yoga Nidra and the Shavasana, relaxation? Can you please briefly explain? Thank you.
Yes. So Shavasana, Yoga Nidra, I can call it as an extended Shavasana. If I have to use Shavasana in any classroom, it's just for a few minutes to rest the body before I go into the next asana or I finish the class with Shavasana. But Yoga Nidra is extended Shavasana, not only extended Shavasana, but it is a systematic way of relaxing the body physically, emotionally, and mentally. So along with Shavasana, when you call it as a Yoga Nidra, the extended Shavasana for up to 30 minutes, 20 minutes, it is accompanied by detailed body relaxation instructions, detailed breath awareness, and there are some resolves, affirmations. So what we are trying to do through Yoga Nidra is to go deeper into our subconscious mind. Just to make it easy, what is subconscious mind? Come on, think of your friend from a school you've not met since ages. Could you think? All of you could think of a friend? How long it took you to think about the friend? Few seconds. Right? Did you even see that friend since years? No. But this was stored somewhere, right? This storage is subconscious mind. So this storage is where we are holding a lot of our patterns, habits, behavioral traits where we end up regretting, I don't want to behave like this, but I end up doing this, So sometimes conscious help we take, but if subconscious is not cleared, then we keep on behaving, reacting habits in the same way, and there is no deeper healing coming to us. So Yoga Nidra, through resolve, affirmations, and visualizations, they are also put into that I'm relaxing my body. Some affirmations are put in a systematic way. So that helps to address even subconscious patterns and habit. So it is a very deep science, very systematic way of relaxing, much, much higher quality than a normal sleep that we think we are getting rest. But Yoga Nidra is also very, very important practice, which is very systematic. Shavasana is where it's like a asana where we just give rest to our body in lying down and try to relax, we breathe deeply. But Yoga Nidra is always accompanied with a proper script in a systematic sequence of body relaxation, breath awareness, visualization, affirmations, resolve, etc. So that is Yoga Nidra. And of course, I'm so glad to hear this, that your corporate world is promoting this. It's very important, very much appreciated. So wonderful.
Thank you, Mataji. And is there any way we get your contact information? A question for Ujjwala Mataji.
Yes, yes, Mataji. Ujjwala
Okay,
Mataji.
sure. We will
Awesome.
continue
And
to
I'm
give
always at
more
Govardhan
and
Eco
more.
Village, as Mataji said. So you're most welcome.
Thank
Whenever
you.
gates open for all of us post-COVID.
Sure. Thank you so much. Hare Krishna.
Is it okay, Mataji? Like 2-3 minutes more if there are any questions?
Yeah,
and
no
we-
problem. Yes, no problem.
Just
So it's 12:29. So we'll see if there's one more question we'll take.
right, yeah, for about 2-3 minutes.
So anyone else would like to ask a question? You can unmute and go ahead.
And please remember, we will have the sessions coming more, so we will have the opportunities to get the answers in the future too. This is just the beginning.
Yes, absolutely.
Right.
Theory is just the beginning. Practice is what is more important. And then they'll have more questions. I have pain here. I have an ache there. What do I do?
Right. Exploration starts now. Yeah.
Questions.
So, Mataji, yeah, I will let that question go, please. After that, maybe we can
I got
close the session.
Okay, I can also see a question on the chat. Shall I take it up?
Please,
Yeah, go ahead.
please go ahead. Yeah.
Okay. Yes. Okay, Rohini Nandan Prabhu is asking interesting question. We hear, Mataji, that our breaths are numbered in a lifetime. What are your thoughts on holding the breath? Yes. So you see, we all have heard yogis live longer. So it's not all the time about some mystic powers that they have. Nowadays, yogis hardly have any mystic powers. It's just about some gymnastic and circus that we do. So it's not about much mystic powers. But this is true. And there is a science and a logic behind it. Not just these siddhis are not playing here much. So how many of you have seen the dog breathing? How does the dog breathe?
Shallow, fast.
Yes, very fast, right? And how many years do the dog live?
Not too long.
Not too long, right? Okay. Now, what about the animals like, or other creatures like tortoise or elephant? How do you know they're breathing?
They take their own time to breathe.
Own time, very slow. I have heard actually from my teacher that tortoise breathes when it comes to his mind. Okay, let's breathe. Like sometimes there's a huge gap between one breath and another breath. And how long do these animals live? Any idea? Have you heard about them?
Hundreds of years.
It's long, thousands of years.
Is this clear now? Did I already answer? So when yogis do deep breathing, now in our scriptures, the Shastras and different books, it is mentioned that, there's an analogy, they say a statement that we all have come with some numbers of breath here. Through some arrangement of our karmas and everything, the breath, if we're done, we leave this body, right? So this is written in different several descriptions, scriptures. So what are we doing? What yogis are doing is not, I think, at least in nowadays, it's not siddhis, but systematically we are conserving our breath count. If that is what is determining our lifespan in a true sense as per scriptures. So when we hold the breath or when we extend, for example, when I do deep breathing, I will end up breathing only 8 or 9 times in a minute. If I'm not doing deep breathing, maybe I am breathing in 14 times, 15 times in 1 minute, like that. So I'm saving 5 breaths per minute. Then you calculate per day, year, and I'm saving. And if I'm holding also, which is part of pranayam, which is a little advanced subject. So yogis also hold the breath. This is also very good for prana enhancing in the body. So holding the breath also is saving us from that time. So yes, this is one of the logic, I would say, that people say yogis live longer because they're saving the breath span. If that is how it is supposed to be counted for their life.
Like, the comment was good too. Please go ahead.
Yeah, so yes, Prabhu, very good comment on that. So we are working out and running out of breath. So I assume, well, again, little detailed subject, but let me put it in a precise way to answer you. There is always a balance that our bodies need of dynamic and static practices. So if dynamic overpowers the static, then definitely it's not nice in long run. So I would completely not rule out the people who are exercise lovers, like who like some dynamic exercise. Our body also needs cardio, especially if your goal is weight management. So only yoga may not complete. If you have been doing yoga from before and healthy lifestyle, then it's possible. But if you have really lost it and you have to really work, you have to also approach dynamic and static. Dynamic practices, then all the fast practices, running, jogging, spinning, gymming will come. Static means I would put all this low resistance, this yoga practices, asana, etc. So we need that for healthy heart also. So it's fine. We have to balance it. Nothing is wrong or right. I would put it as 20% of dynamic and 80% of static for nowadays lifestyle. Already we are running. Our parasympathetic needs to be addressed more. So that's why 20-80. Little bit of ratio here and there, no problem. But we only keep on doing dynamic. I see that maybe they have healthy physical body, but emotionally, mentally, if we don't have static practices in our lifestyle, like asanas and other low resistance, then I see a lot of imbalance in body and mind. Person may have a good body, healthy body, but doesn't have emotional resistance, is what I have seen. But with static yogic practices aligned with breath, mind, I think there's a more balanced personality that will be there.
I'll let you read that comment, that appreciation, Mataji, and then after that,
I thought it's a question because I only heard heart, so I read it later. Yeah. Thank you, Mataji. That's really encouraging for me, your comment. It's never too late, however. As you know now, so.
Definitely.
Mataji,
Yes, Mataji.
I just had one question.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you so much for the wonderful session, Mataji. So in the session, you were mentioning about the pranic food, right? So we need to have our food like related to more of natural thing. So which food items have more prana, Mataji?
Yeah, I love this question. And I'm going to give you only one line answer for this. If you sow, you have some sand, mitti, what do you call? Mother Earth, let's call it in a simple way like that. Yeah. If you sow some pasta, biscuit or noodles in that, and over that, if you sow some lentil, pulses, what will show the result? What will come out?
Nothing much.
If you know, I mean, I'm giving an example. If you sow these things in the plant, like, okay, take a pot.
The sprouts would come out. The salads and the
from
pasta
the lentils and pasta. Okay, pasta will grow.
No,
it's made up from wheat only, right? But noodles will come out, cookies, biscuits, cakes. It's also food, right?
But they are processed already.
Exactly. So they are already processed. They don't have prana left in it to grow anything from it. No life in it. Simple.
So we are wasting all our energy.
To be honest, I'm sorry to disappoint you. I think I disappoint many devotees.
Thank you for the disappointment.
Devotees don't like me sometimes.
Really, we needed to hear that. We needed to hear that.
Mataji, earlier you said like raw food or something like that. It saves the energy, right?
I would see. I also respect naturopathy and I also have love for Ayurveda. So my answer will be always biased. Everybody does not get accustomed with raw. So the second best thing is to have at least steamed something like that. The first best is raw, of course, because the nutrients are maintained. But again, if I have to respect Ayurveda's perspective and balance my answer here, then everybody, some people complain with raw, but it's more to do with their alkaline and acid in the body. The more
I'm not
alkaline
saying
you
all the
have,
time
then you're
raw
good.
food. I'm not saying all the time raw food, like for breakfast or some sprouts or something. Will
Have
save
it,
the
have it.
energy, right?
Yes, should fruits. So plant whatever comes. See, and one more line. I'll give you Ashtasaki to your question. So you understood what is pranic rich food?
Yes, yes.
Less processed.
Less processed.
Whatever comes straight from Mother Earth. And another thing is, I don't know how much practically possible it is in US, but I'm still going to go out and say this. The food which has no list of ingredients written on it is the food for you.
So it is
Also,
the wholesome-
Mataji,
wholesome.
leftover food has no prana in it.
Yes. In a way, yes. But on a practical note, let's see, if you are a working woman, you don't want to stress out yourself too much, but at least you try your best to make food which is close to nature, Mother Earth, which still retains some nutrients. So we have to always balance, right? It's not about, so we may trouble ourselves and our family by even getting too much worried about what we are eating or not. But I follow simple principle. Whatever is close to nature, less processed, without any chemicals. So no ingredients means which food, Ashtasaki?
Whole, like for example, carrot. It is just
Our
only carrot.
grains, our
Grains,
vegetables and
every
fruits, they
vegetable.
don't have a list of ingredients written on it.
Yeah.
So that's what you should have maximum on your shelf, on your dining table. So
So
this
it's
is a
okay to
simple
have
answer.
like, yeah, thank you, Mataji. And is it okay to have like rice, dal for lunch along with some sabji, and for maybe dinner like chapati?
Yeah, with more salad,
with
of course. You should
salad,
have that
more
also.
salad. Yeah.
And we recommend sometimes having more brown rice over the refined white rice, but you see how convenient it is for you. So basically you eat everything. I'm never give advices on not having this or that. You eat everything home cooked, but try to source it locally from more trusted sources like organic and more wholesome. So avoid refined versions of all the grains. Go for more of the first copy of that.
Yeah. Thank you.
That was very helpful, Mataji. Thank you so much.
So much. Aarti Mataji, thank you. We might be holding you here the whole day because we want to know so much. But
actually, when it starts with diet questions, I know.
Exactly. I think in the future sessions, we will ask from all the devotees of what information they would need more, and we will be in touch with you, Mataji, so we can have more of these sessions. This is 12:40. I mean, still we feel like we want to hear more. So we will be inviting you. Please be kind enough to continue the sessions.
My pleasure for such an enthusiastic community that you have, and best wishes for your project that you're doing. Wonderful.
Yes, thank you, Mataji. And the last notice for all of us, the devotees. So far we have covered the Annamaya Kosha is done with the Ayurveda. Last session, Pranamaya Kosha is done with today's session. The Manomaya Kosha is going to start. So that is the last session that is left over, the emotional health, Manomaya Kosha. Can't stress enough. Mataji beautifully put it. The psychosomatic problems that we all go through, devotees or not, we all go through this because we have these layers. And there will be disturbances coming in these layers, and how to address those layers. So about the Manomaya Kosha, about the emotional health, are these 3 upcoming sessions. Next, the one that is coming up soon is by Ramboru Mataji. She's been a blessing in ISKCON, bringing this wave of the need for emotional health. So she will be coming, Mataji will be coming to speak. I can't stress the importance of that session. And after that, 2 more sessions by His Holiness Vedavyasa Swami Maharaj and His Holiness Bir Krishna Maharaj on the same Manomaya Kosha and how Manomaya Kosha can lead to the Jnana and Vijnanamaya Kosha. So the last 2 classes would be on that. So giving you on that note, we will look forward to meet again next Sunday, 11 o'clock again. Pranams to you all. Thank you again. Aarti Mataji. We'll see you soon again.
Thank you.
Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Thank you so much, Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Mataji.
Thank you, Mataji. Hare
Thank
Krishna.
you,
Thank you,
Mataji. Thank you so much, Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Mataji.
Thank you, Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Mataji. Hare Krishna.